I mean, this review won't be subjective at all. Purely scientific. Carry on. Photography is one of my favorite hobbies. This shouldn't surprise you if you follow my journey on this channel. For me, photography can somehow both be meditative while also being exhilarating, even heart-racing at times. It helps me capture beautiful vistas and document cherished family memories. In short, it is good for my soul. The camera I use during this practice can either aid or hinder the whole experience. There's no clear answer here for what camera will work best for you, as it's highly personal. Perhaps you know what I'm talking about already, when a camera sort of clicks with you, simultaneously both becoming invisible, but also the perfect tool for your creative vision. For me, the camera that has done this best over the years is the Pentax K-1. It's hard to describe how good this camera is. Now, I'm a very practical hobbyist photographer, and I get along with much older and more limited cameras. I also have the attitude that if a picture comes out subpar, then it must be because of the photographer, me, and not the camera's fault. So, coming in with those limited expectations, maybe it's predictable then that this camera absolutely blows me away. Rather than cover every single feature on the Pentax K-1 in this video, I just want to highlight a few things that I really love about this camera. Let me start with perhaps the most important part of a camera for me, ergonomics. I've not handled other full-frame cameras extensively, only at the store for a few seconds at a time, but the Pentax K-1 is the best feeling full-frame camera I've ever held. A deep grip and an excellent thumb rest. Heavy but well balanced, buttons and dials perfectly located. While you wouldn't normally one-hand such a large camera, I can and do regularly with my 43mm limited when I'm taking photos of my kids and have to use some strange techniques to get their attention. Even if you never had a use for that, it does say a lot about the ergonomics of the camera. If it weren't for the weight, it could potentially take the crown from the K5 and K3 for best ergonomics in a camera that I have ever used. Staying on the exterior for a minute, my list of favorite things about the K-1 would be incomplete without mentioning the LCD screen. This moonlander of an articulating screen got a lot of attention when it was first released. There's really nothing quite like it. A lot of movable screens feel very cheap and easy to break, though admittedly I rarely hear of that actually happening. They are also difficult to get quite in the position you want. This screen not only moves wherever you want it, it does so with absolute ease and without the slightest hint of being fragile. This is usability at its finest. It might actually be my favorite engineering feat of any product I've ever used. Okay, now you can make fun of me for my love for this screen. I won't spend a lot of time on the dials and buttons, other than they are all practical and helpful. I think the dial combo up top is helpful for controlling settings quickly, including ISO if you don't want to hold down the ISO button. Beyond the ergonomics is maybe the second most important aspect of a camera for me, and that is image quality. Now, of course, image quality can be defined objectively and subjectively many different ways. If you want, there are some nifty graphs with some numbers and lines on them, but I find that stuff super distracting and it makes me more gear hungry. But let's just say the image quality on this camera is fantastic. It especially works well with Pentax's vintage glass, which I think was the thing that Pentaxians were anticipating the most in their first digital full-frame camera. Then of course there are nifty features like Astro Tracer, which I actually use regularly. and one of, if not the first, sensor shift high megapixel photo modes, which I played with a few times but rarely use. It does work well though. It's worth mentioning the sensor stabilization, even though many cameras have it today. It works very, very well, and it may be one of the best ever produced in a DSLR body. It's a feature that is hard to live without once you switch back to a body without it. So there you have it, 3 wonderful years with the Pentax K-1, and I hope for at least 3, if not many more. It's honestly the best camera I've ever used, and I feel very fortunate to have been able to purchase it for such an inexpensive price, thanks to a general seller and a defect. That's right, this camera is hiding a defect that has never once bothered me, but saved me over $500. But that's a story for another day. Thanks for watching. How many of you are out there shooting with the Pentax K-1? How about an older full-frame camera body from another manufacturer? I'm curious to know your thoughts on those. As always, if you want to see the random stuff I am shooting, follow me on Instagram. And if you want to join a community of photographers who don't fight over why their gear is better than yours, then head on over to the Snappiness forum. I'd love to hear from you there. Remember to go out there and shoot wherever you are and with whatever gear you have. And until next time, happy snapping.